Today, Eastchester is a bustling and diverse town, but it wasn't always this way. Let us take a look at the industrialization and commercialization of Eastchester, Tuckahoe, and Bronxville through the years.
After the Revolutionary War, Eastchester was all farmland, and it was 2.5 times the size it is today. But in 1814, a new business came to town.
This is the old stone mill, built in 1814 and owned by the Eastchester Manufacturing Company.
The cotton mill was founded to meet the demand of cotton. The cotton was needed because of the British blockade that was set up during the War of 1812.
During the war, the blockade of our ports forced the country to become self-sufficient, and it ultimately jump-started our Industrial Revolution. It was during this time that the cotton mill was built.
The mill's purpose was to create cotton thread. It employed women and children.
It changed hands a lot through the years, but it was eventually shut down in 1851 because cotton mills in the South could produce cotton at a much cheaper rate.
Though ultimately unsuccessful, the cotton mill was the first step in the industrialization of the town. It is the second oldest standing cotton mill in the entire United States.
The next development in the industrialization of Eastchester, Tuckahoe, and Bronxville was the growth of the marble industry.
In 1820, a large vein of marble was discovered under Tuckahoe and parts of present-day Eastchester. This marble later came to be known worldwide as Tuckahoe marble.
The marble industry is the most well-known industry in Eastchester's history. There were 6 quarries scattered throughout Eastchester and Tuckahoe. But every industry needs a leader, right? Enter Alexander Masterton.
Masterton really pioneered the marble industry. He was a self-taught stonecutter who came in, and he got the different quarry owners to work together.
This unity and cooperation helped the industry grow tremendously.
He organized it, and eventually what they did is they began not simply to mine the marble, but to dress it here. And he was really the mastermind behind the industry.
The life of a quarryman was very difficult. These hardworking men were tasked with mining, putting, and transporting the marble.
Then there were the stone cutters who dressed the marble and fitted it for consumption. They were they got paid 3 times as much.
Once the marble was dressed, it was loaded onto oxen-drawn carriages. The marble was then brought down Marbledale Road, and it eventually reached Eastchester Creek. From there, it was shipped all over the country.
Tuckahoe Quarry was used in Washington, New York, Brooklyn, Baltimore, New Orleans, Newport, Rhode Island, Boston. So that was a huge business, and employed first the Irish and then the Italians, and that was nationally known.
But it wasn't until the arrival of the railroads in the town in 1844 that the marble industry really started to take off.
The railroad really transformed everything. Why? First of all, rather than having to drag everything on a barge down the post road to Eastchester Creek, which is down in the Bronx now you can just ship it off.
Because of this, Tuckahoe marble was that much easier to send off to other parts of the country, and it was in demand before the Civil War, in the late 19th century,
and even in the 20th century, Tuckahoe marble was in demand. Some of the columns at Soldier Field were made by the last quarry right here. That's Soldier's Field. So it was a prominent industry in the United States.
But in the mid-19th century, another important step was taken in the industrialization of the town.
What most people, even in the town, don't know, that the biggest employer in town wasn't the marble quarries, it was Hodgman Rubber.
The Hodgman Rubber Factory was built in 1853. It produced many rubber supplies such as rain jackets, ponchos, tents, and knapsacks.
The Hodgman Rubber Factory was located right on the Bronx River and is adjacent to the old cotton mill. They are located on the present-day border between Tuckahoe and Yonkers.
The major plant was in Tuckahoe, and then they moved in 1925. I guess they thought they could make things less expensively in Massachusetts.
But at Hadron Rubber's peak during World War I, the factory employed more than 1,700 people in the town.
The first ethnic group to immigrate to the town were the Irish. They arrived seeking refuge from the Irish potato famine in the mid-19th century. The second major ethnic group to arrive in the town were the Italians. They make up the majority of the population today.
Now, the interesting thing about the Irish is the men came in, and many of them were unskilled quarrymen who did the work. But also there was a large number of Irish women who came as maids and worked in the big estates in the town, which was very different than the Italians, because the Italians, it was all men came over. Then they sent for their wives and their daughters, and the daughters, according to the culture, had to stay home.
But in the late 1800s, a new kind of immigrant came to town, the wealthy one.
In 1891, Canadian businessman William Van Duzer Lawrence wanted to create a hideaway for the elite of New York City, so he built a series of mansion-like houses which he called Lawrence Park. Lawrence Park was accessible by rail from Manhattan, which is roughly 10 miles from it. Many of the wealthy inhabitants of Manhattan had homes in Lawrence Park.
The creation of Lawrence Park was the first major step in the commercialization of Eastchester, Tuckahoe, and Bronxville, and it became the most exclusive railroad suburb in the country.
After the establishment of Lawrence Park, the next influential step in the commercialization of the town was the creation of the Bronx River Parkway.
The Parkway, built from 1907 to 1925, dramatically changed the dynamics of the town.
With its creation, it now became possible for people to live in the town and make a daily commute to New York City.
They had Model T Fords, the number of cars skyrocketed, so there were people from the city, from surrounding areas, and they were able to afford homes, and then there was a whole wave of home building out here.
Today, the cotton mill is now a thriving restaurant known as the Old Stone Mill.
The 6 bygone marble quarries were all put to various use, and this one has been converted into what is today Dunwoody Park.
The old Hodgman rubber factory has changed hands throughout the years, and at one point was owned by a pharmaceutical company. It is now currently residential apartments.
Lawrence Park is still a prosperous, booming neighborhood.
And today, the Bronx River Parkway is still going strong. The cotton mill,
The marble quarries,
The Hadron Rubber Factory,
the Irish and Italian immigrants,
Lawrence Park,
and the Bronx River Parkway,
make Eastchester
Tuckahoe,
and Bronxville
what it is today.
We are glad to share this wealth of information with you. And
Happy 350th anniversary!